There were 30 games released on Xbox last week. Thanks to Fulqurm Publishing, I got the chance to look at one of the games. VED is an RPG / visual novel with some turn-based combat and some rogue light elements. In this game you play as Cyrus, a young man who is coming to Micropolis and staying with his aunt to try and get a new life. Cyrus ends up getting a teleporting ability to go beyond the boundary into the magical world. VED's story is told in a non-linear fashion, and I had a very mixed experience with how it unfolds. Now, it's very easy to understand the main conflict of the story, but everything in between felt like a jumbled mess. VED has a bunch of choices to make, so I could have just had the bad choices. It's a fish out of water type experience, not only for Cyrus, but for us, the player too. To me, it was like putting together multiple puzzles that have all the edge pieces laid out in front of you, but you don't know which piece you'll pick up next. When you go into the magical world, there will be different teleports to take, and you really don't know what you'll go into. Some options are clearly labeled on what path you'll go down, but others not so much. Another wrinkle is that it's color-coded as the same as Dex, Strength, and Magic, and those same three colors are used for the words in the tutorials, loading screen tips, and used again with the relationship stats, friendliness, respect, and fear. So you can tell it's kind of confusing that way, because I was like, at first I thought, oh, these factions represent each color, but I don't think that's the case. The game is structured like this on purpose. It wants you to play multiple playthroughs. Thankfully, it's easy to do because you can skip all of the text, even if you haven't seen it. And if you don't want to skip the text, you can do that when you want to hear new paths that you're taking. I'm writing this in the middle of my second run, and it doesn't feel as hodgepodge because of the more knowledge I've have of the story. When Cyrus teleports off to the magical world, the time in the real world doesn't stop. The characters of the other factions keep going on, so when you get back, sometimes you'll only hear snippets or you'll actually see the results. The voice acting for the most part is pretty good, but some are a bit jarring, whether it be them being too jolly or it feels like you're just reading the script. Some of the characters pronounce some words in a weird way, or they have multiple different accents. Now it's not that big of a problem. That's how real life works. Multiple people have different types of accents and pronounce words differently. It's not that big of a deal in here, but since it's such a small cast, it is kind of noticeable. Some of the dialogue felt like it was just talking to talk or to pad out the game time. The story is written in a way when you end up choosing a different faction path, whether it be in the middle of the game or just you chose a different faction but like you swap. It's like you've been with that faction the whole time and everybody's really friendly and Cyrus is like, oh yeah, I've been doing this. Now that could have just been the choices I made. For me, on my first playthrough, the events of the prologue didn't come into play in a meaningful way until chapter 5. When playing it, it feels like the stop and reflect moments are missing in the story. But maybe your experience will be different with the different choices you can make. The overall story lore is interesting enough for me to see it through the end. My first run was around 7 hours or so. I wasn't really satisfied with the ending I got. It just made me feel very mixed about this whole experience. The combat in VED is turn-based with sort of a twist to it. There are 4 zones, each zone's having attacks or abilities that can move you left or right, and some just stay still. Some of the enemies' attacks can also make you move into a different zone. This combat system has rounds where each round gives you a set of action points to attack or buff or debuff enemies. It's a little bit more tactical than expected. I think it's fine. Some battles can end up in a loop because some enemies can heal or summon minions, or when you knock down their health bar they just split apart. into multiple enemies. It can be a bit confusing at first, but at least losing a battle doesn't have any downsides that I could tell. Before each battle you can perform a ritual that can make battles harder or easier. If you make it harder, you'll get more energy, and if you choose the easy ritual, you'll lose some of that energy. The energy can be used to build the buildings back at dawn. When you build these buildings, you get more attacks or skills. The shield and healing ones are pretty great. The vampirism one I used a lot. In between the battles in the magic world, you'll encounter some NPCs that can help you, or it'll be random events. Helping these NPCs can give you blessings to help you in your battles. The random events require skill checks, and each time you complete 3 of them, the strength, dexterity, and magic, you'll get a point in that skill. Pass a skill check, you'll need to roll a d20 die, and if you get more points in your stats, you'll easily pass them. These are a gamble because it can be a blessing or a curse. Eventually you can clear those, but I didn't because the blessings were worth it. If you end up not really caring for the combat or the skill checks, you can turn on story mode difficulty. It'll make sure you'll pass all the skill checks no matter what. The combat will be a breeze, but you can still fail if it's a harder battle. For some reason, you'll have to keep turning on story mode each time you start the game if you choose to use that option. Bringing us to the achievements of VED, some very silly people are going to skip it completely until there's a full achievement guide out, because most of the achievements have an odd value of 32. People really love that their score ends in a 5 or a 0. Me, I don't really care. On my first playthrough of VED, I got 14 out of 31 achievements, which isn't too bad, almost half. From looking at them, you'll have to play through the game quite a bit to get the different endings. You'll be able to skip all the text, but you'll still have to battle, but you can breeze through that. Eventually, there's probably a guide here on YouTube or over on the Steam forums. There's probably one there now, I didn't check yet. Clan Studio did a decent job with VED. I think it may be a bit too overcooked from the long development time. The world they made was interesting and the monster designs were really good. The art styles is great too. I like how it's like 2D and sometimes it looks 3D. It's got some quirks and flaws. Looking back as I was writing this and playing it again, I would say I enjoyed my time with it. With the price of it being $25, you may be on the fence. So if you come across this video, I hope it helps you make a decision either way. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.